I've been looking at different settings for chanting the preface to the Eucharistic prayer or Great Thanksgiving, and there are two main schools. There's the that we have manuscripts for. There's one that's the Vatican tradition, and you can find it set to Latin in the Missale Romanum, and then there's the Sarum version that's clearly based on the same chant, but has a few little differences from it. And so what you find in there's difficulty in translating this music for singing to English texts. So there have been various attempts to do it, some of them good, some of them not so good. So for the Church of England, at the back of the Common Worship President's Edition, the altar missal, there are settings by John Harper, the former director of RSCM, and they are based on the Sarum version. And if you look in a modern English Catholic missal, you'll find the preface tones that are set, obviously, according to the Vatican tradition. And there are various differences between the two, but one of them that stands out for me is right at the end of each section of the prayer. There is a termination, and the terminations sound pretty similar, but the syllable before the final accent is different in both tones. So both tones end, want to get to the final note, and but the note before the final accent is different. So in the Sarum tradition, the tone rises to the reciting note before the dominant, before dropping back a minor third to the final, and sometimes wobbling around a bit. And the Vatican ones don't go that high. They go to a semitone below the reciting note, the subdominant, and then drop back just a whole tone to the final. So I'm used to singing the Sarum version, and I think it's brighter and more musical, and I think the Vatican version sounds a bit more dull and slightly wobbly because you don't have this extra rise to the reciting note. So to exemplify this, there's I'm just opening this. There's a preface where the first section has a line for the termination, which is, "Through your Son, Jesus Christ, our great high priest." And in that, I would put the final accent on the word great. So, great high priest. So the syllable to watch out for is the one before that. So it's our great high priest. So it'll be a semitone higher in the Sarum version. But here's the Vatican version, first of all. Through your Son, Jesus Christ, our great high priest. And the Sarum one is, through your Son, Jesus Christ, our great high priest. So the Vatican version is, through your Son, Jesus Christ, our great high priest. And Sarum, through your Son, Jesus Christ, our great high priest. So, I don't know which you prefer. I prefer the Sarum version. I think that sounds brighter. But one of the difficulties with English is the presence of oxytones. So that's a line that ends on an accented syllable. So great high priest doesn't, because I put great on the antepenultimate syllable. So let's choose a text. A rich diversity of gifts. And so gifts is the accent, and it's the last syllable. And I think the Vatican version sounds better here because otherwise you get that minor third drop at the end, which just to me sounds a bit bleh. So the Vatican version of A Rich Diversity of Gifts would be sung like a rich diversity of gifts, a rich diversity of gifts. And the Sarum version, with that higher rise on the penultimate, would be a rich diversity of gifts, a rich diversity of gifts. So there you go. I'm a bit divided. I would go for the Sarum way when the accent isn't final, and the Vatican way when it is final. So an interesting thing, if you look at John Harper's pointing of the Eucharistic Prefaces according to the Sarum tone, he just completely avoids oxytones. So he just, if the last syllable is accented, he just pretends it isn't, which then presents serious problems for setting short lines like a rich diversity of gifts, that he has to borrow the line before and use that even if it doesn't sound so great together. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on music for the proper prefaces. Thank you. So just a nota bene, I mentioned that John Harper always avoided, for the termination cadence, putting the accent on the last syllable. So, and I used that preface from the Common Worship Ordinal, which has a rich diversity of gifts. It's not one that he's set. So if he had set it, how would he have set it? He'd just about do it by putting the tone on the T of diversity. And his way of setting would be quite different from what I sung. And actually, you might think that this is the nicer way of doing it. So his way of setting a rich diversity of gifts would be a rich diversity of gifts. And again, that's a rich diversity of gifts. Okay, so another, I suppose, caveat or additional, what I've called the Vatican tradition. Of course, I've been singing it to an English text, so I've been using the ICEL version. So ICEL is the International Commission on English and the Liturgy, so Roman Catholic body that's responsible for producing authoritative English language texts for the typical Mass in English. So that's the version of the chant I've been doing, rather than the actual Vatican Latin chant from the typical edition of the Missal. And the Sarum versions, okay, to come clean, I've simplified them to emphasize just that one syllable, rising up to the reciting note. If I were to do proper Sarum tradition, then I would have to go up to reciting note a bit more. What happens, I quite like the ICEL version, is they've separated that accent out and used it as a separate floating accent in the second part of the chant, and it makes it much more flexible. But just for completeness, what I sang as the Sarum tradition as, okay, tune in here. Through Jesus Christ, our great high priest. A more authentic Sarum version would be, through Jesus Christ, our great high priest. And yeah, I think that's great. That's far more lyrical, and those who know the Anglican preface chants will probably recognize that far more, far more movement to it. It's not that the ICEL Vatican version lacks that movement, it's just that it's separated it out to make it more flexible. So if we want to do a rich diversity of gifts, I sang the Sarum version as a rich diversity of gifts, and a Tot Sarum version would be a rich diversity of gifts. So there you go. I've just made it even more confusing now, but someone would have pointed it out.